I would like to talk about the 5 typical beginner mistakes that the players who are starting out, they're committing in their games. So that's why sit tight, listen to this lesson, and make sure you're not doing it if you are just starting out and you're looking for ways to improve your game. So there you go. We're going to start with the first mistake. That is unnecessary pawn moves. What does it mean? Because if you have done some lessons on how you're supposed to start out in a chess game, one of the biggest mistakes typically is investing too much time for useless pawn moves. So a couple of principles you have to know in opening phase. You fight for the center, you develop your pieces, you bring the king to the safety, and then you keep your eyes open, right? So that's why, for example, here, Black played h6, which is like, just in case I'm protecting against bishop g5 or some knight g5 ideas, so it feels about right. But the thing is, the pawn on h6 is not really developing your pieces. You're keeping the king in the center, and that's why you have to be very careful if there's no immediate problems. So your opponent could counter-strike in the center with a move e5. You see, oh yeah, there's a problem with the knight. I can't possibly jump it with it any further. So knight h7, that's a pretty ugly place for the knight. And there comes the problem, a tactical shot. So we already discussed this in the typical tactical tricks lesson. Bishop takes on f7, hitting the f7 or f2 squares is one of the key ideas, key tricks that you always have to keep your eyes on, because that is one of the weakest squares in your opponent's position. Now here's the idea, king f7 is queen d5 check, that's a double attack. The king has to move, collect the bishop on c5, and this king is wide open for a direct attack. Let me show you another example here. So here, Black just played a pretty decent opening, and he just has to continue his development with bishop e7, short castle, and look safe. But for some reason, Black decided here to play a6. Why? Who knows? Yeah, so Black wants to play some b5, or he saw some ghosts after knight b5 or bishop b5 or something. But now he loses valuable time, and White can immediately target the weakness on f7 by playing knight g5. You see, now this is a very difficult threat to parry. And actually the only thing how Black can defend it is playing in b5, which already costs Black material. So White is going to take on d5. You can't take on d5 because White can simply more attacking pieces. Knight d4, maybe some trick. But now White again reopens this shot on the pawn on f7. So if Black comes up with this knight e6, fine, but it just already cost him a lot. So d takes, take on e6, take on e6, and Black's position is just terrible. Double pawns, White has an extra pawn, so clearly a disaster for Black. And it all started with the move a6. The second mistake that many club level players, at least those who are starting out, they're making it early queen moves. So do not do that. The queen is your most valuable piece. This means if you bring it out early, there's a fair chance that your opponent might attack your queen with his minor pieces or the pawns, and every single time your queen will have to move. That's why, again, you fight for the center, you develop your typically minor pieces, you castle short, you keep your eyes open, and only then think about developing the queen. Now look at this, what happened in this game? So Black played queen f6. Maybe he thought I could try to go for the scholar's mate. Of course, scholar's mate is a very popular idea, so bringing out the queen is so tempting. But again, this queen will be a target. So White here played bishop c4, and Black thought, okay, I'm going to immediately create some threats. So I'm hitting the pawn on g2, hitting the pawn on e4. It's great, right? No. So here White can just castle. And White is doing everything correctly. So White is developing, fighting for the center, developing pieces, bringing the king to the safety, and it's Black who is making a lot of moves with the queen. Now, here we have a lot of great moves for White. So the immediate move is bishop takes on f7. We're just using the tactical trick that we know, hitting the weakness on f7. And after king f7, we have created a fork. There you go. Black just loses the game instantly. I mean, on top of that, you could also play for the development. You could play d4. You see the queen on e4 is not where it's supposed to be. We can use a lot of tempies to hit it. For example, e takes on d4, rook e1, black can already resign. This is where it leads you. Some early queen moves against a good opponent is going to be immediately game over. You can't do it. Let me show another example. For example, in this position, black is doing all right. So he has to continue development here, bring out the king set pieces, castle short. But here in this game, black decided to play queen h4. Why? Well, he saw a pawn. So white here played knight f3, not only hitting the queen, but defending the pawn. So black here played queen f6. Again, this f6 square is very typical for starting level players to do it. And now, bishop g5. Whoa, the queen is lost. Yeah, you see, you can't take the bishop, the knight protects you. You can't play queen f6, queen g6, the bishop protects it. You just have no squares, no squares. And this very often can be the result of bringing out the queen early. You're going to lose the queen. So again, do not do it. The third mistake that is very often done is the players forget to protect their pieces. They are very scattered, and it just takes one shot for them to lose. So here black played bishop e6. This is already a mistake because white can give a queen a4 check, and sometimes this sneaky check is overlooked because now you see the bishop on b4 is hit. So this is a double attack. And if black plays knight c6, we can remove the defender that defends the bishop. Bishop takes on c6, check. And this means black cannot include in-between move or the Zwischenzug or the intermezzo move. Bishop takes on c3 because the king is under attack. So you have to take on c6, queen b4, and thank you for the piece. Actually, if you go back to the starting position, bishop e6 is just a terrible move because also bishop b7 is bad. And I think in general you want to have a principle, develop the knights first and only the bishops, so that you are not blundering the pawns on b7 and g7. On top of that, the rooks on h8 and a8. Another example. So here, black played queen e7. So what he missed, he left some pieces unguarded. So make sure you're not missing some long moves like bishop b7. You see, now this bishop is hitting the knight on a6, the rook on c8, and if black decides to defend the rook on c8, white can simply collect the extra knight on a6, and that's it. Basically, the position is already completely lost. The fourth mistake that keeps appearing all the time at the starting level players is the weak king. The king is something you have to protect very quickly. Again, remember, fight for the center, bring out the pieces, castle short as quickly as possible. Do not make some random moves with the pawns. Unfortunately, in this game, this is what black was doing. He was making some random moves, and now he played bishop g4, which he thought it's pretty great because he's pinning the knight on f3, and if this knight moves, he's winning the queen. Guess what? White did exactly that. White played knight e5, and black thought, oh wow, this is great. I'm going to take the queen. Mission accomplished. It was so easy. Except there's a check. You can't take it, the knight protects it. You can't go here, the knight attacks it. And after king e7, checkmate. This is what we call legal mate. You can't do it. I mean, there's no squares to go for the king. Nobody's attacking the d5 square. That's it. Black is just checkmated immediately. So after this knight e5, the best black can do is just take on e5 and accept a much, much worse position. So this is the result of leaving the king in the center, making some random moves. Another example with the king in the center, when black is doing some funny stuff, for example, he played b5. And again, white is just using a trick, hitting a weak f7 or f2 square for some tactical shots. Bishop takes on f7 works again. Now the key idea is that after king f7, there is incoming knight g5. So, if the king walks away, king e8, we're trapping the queen. He has nowhere to go. If black goes here, this is a fork. I mean, basically the same idea, but black is losing the queen. And going forward is also not a solution, because now it ends the game immediately. Knight d5, checkmate on the board. Actually, I think queen f3 is also a checkmate on the board, but okay, knight e5 is a bit more cute. That's it. So these are the outcomes. Do not leave your king's safety unattended, and this should be one of your priorities in the opening. And the final fifth mistake that keeps appearing at the beginner level all the time is castling weaknesses. The rule should be you do not push the pawns in front of your king. I mean, imagine yourself, you treat the pawns in front of your king like an umbrella, and you're going outside in a rainy day. And definitely you do not want to extend the umbrella like 1 meter above your head. Why? Because the reasons are pretty obvious. You're going to get wet. So the same is here. Black cannot play g5. And black had a couple of good moves here, like bishop e7. But this is a pin. We deal with a pin. Black could play d6. Probably also pretty decent. But g5 is just bad. Why? Because your umbrella is gone. And it might be a surprise, but attacking pieces to expose the king, namely black's king, is a very, very common thing in chess. Don't be surprised. So the point here, after queen g5, you see this is a check. The king has to walk away. And now the simplest white can do, just take on f6, recapture the winning piece, and that's it. Thank you for the extra 2 pawns. Your king is weak. And again, white is just winning. Another example, a final example here is you might be not moving the pawns forward. So the best possible place for your pawns to stand in front of your king is the starting position. Maybe sometimes h6 to make a window for the king, but in general, do not touch them. But you also need to make sure that you're not allowing these pawns to move forward by capturing some pieces. Like, for example, here. Black was pretty annoyed with the pin. The knight cannot move, the queen is under attack, and black decided, I'm going to play queen d7, then I'm going to move the knight and I'm doing okay. But what happened is that black missed, bishop takes an f6. And now the point is, this is a pretty ugly position for black. The king is wide open for an attack. This is no longer an umbrella. I mean, there's a big hole in the umbrella, so obviously the rain is pouring in. And that's why it's very common that if your umbrella is broken, you have no protection of your king. The pawns are not taking care of your king's safety. White can start, or whichever play you're playing, from white's or black's perspective, white can start a decisive attack. You see, this is a threat, and let's say a6, simply knight f6 collects the queen. That's it. So think about those 5 mistakes if you're just starting out to play chess. Do not do them. Remember, those are the mistakes you don't want to do. Unnecessary pawn moves, this is a waste of time. Do not develop the queen early. It's going to become a problem. Leave your pieces defended. Take care of your pieces. Also, get away from the king in the center as quickly as possible. Castle short. And of course, take care of your pawns in front of the king that are ensuring the king's safety. Good luck.